Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Ashley. I am an outreach counselor here at Cal State East Bay, and I'm very excited to welcome you all to this evening's virtual session with some of our amazing admitted students. I am an outreach counselor here at East Bay. I am also a very proud alumni of East Bay, and I'm really excited to be one of the first people to welcome you and to also provide some great information about the Pioneer experience for you all. And so this evening, we have a few amazing pioneers that are going to share about their experience. Um, one really quick housekeeping item, if you have not already. So, Cal State East Bay is hosting an amazing event called Admitted Students Day, and that's going to be hosted on Saturday, April 25th, next Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you are available, I highly encourage you to attend, specifically because this is the event where we roll out the red carpet for all admitted students, and we have all of the non-academic, academic organization departments, clubs, and organizations are there. We'll have tours, some short fast classes, and it's just your best way of being able to check out the campus. This was an event that I went to when I was doing school shopping, and this is the event that actually made me choose East Bay. And so I hope you're able to attend. If you do, I will be there as well. But that's not what tonight's about. Tonight is about you guys learning and getting to meet some other pioneers. And so the way it's going to work is we're going to first start off with some written questions that we already have, and then we'll open it up to you all to get some questions answered for you. So I wanted to start off with us introducing our panelists. And so I guess if we could go one by one, and I'll start with Alyssa, just telling us your name, your major, and your year and where you're from. And if there's any other points about yourself you'd like to introduce.
Hi everyone, my name is Elissa. I'm a fourth year hospitality major. I also had a concentration in event planning, and then I'm originally from Southern California and I moved up to East Bay to go to college.
Go ahead, Joshua.
Hi, I'm Joshua Hitchcock. I'm a senior. I have one more semester to go, fall 2026. I'm live in Palm Desert, California. I'm a completely remote student. So if you have any remote questions, I can answer all those. And I'm majoring in philosophy with emphasis on religious studies.
Some planned questions that we have now for the two of you guys. Um, First, what made you decide to pursue your major? Were there any pivotal points that, or winning points that you saw, or was there any real drive or passion that made you choose? Oh,
Do you mind?
Hope!
Sorry, do you mind if I?
Yes, I
I know
apologize.
I joined like right 2 minutes before this, but yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm Hope. I am third year right now, but I'm supposed to graduate in the fall. And I am a sociology and ethnic studies major, and I'm on campus. I lived on campus for my first 2 years, but I also live in the area, so I started commuting this year, so I have a couple different experiences on those ends. Um, but yeah, I um am involved in some other organizations on campus, but I know we're going to talk a little bit about that more later.
Well, I'll bounce it back to Hope if you want to tell me about what made you choose your major.
Yeah, originally I was interested in psychology mostly because I didn't know what sociology was, and I still feel like it's kind of a smaller major, like it's not always offered on all campuses. So that was definitely one reason that I think I ended up choosing East Bay was that it had the specific program that I was interested in. Some of them are similar, like social sciences or social studies, but not necessarily sociology. So that was something that factored into my own decision. But I was always just interested in people, and helping people, which is just kind of at the core what I really like to do. So when I found out what sociology was, or I always like social psychology specifically, so then it kind of led to sociology. But yeah, that's kind of just a general why I ended up choosing my major. And then also ethnic studies was not originally planned for me, but I kind of figured out that I was able to do both because they're both smaller majors credit wise in terms of uh requirements. So it kind of ends up being one big major like put together credit wise. So it's not like a whole extra long time for me to be able to do both programs, but yeah, both of them are things I'm interested in. So yeah.
And then we'll bounce it backwards. So Joshua, you're next.
Okay, what got me as an older student, I've always just wanted to get a degree, and I was first interested, and I went to a local community college and got my associates in religious studies, and they're so closely related. I also got one in philosophy, and the reason I chose East Bay is because their philosophy program is 100% online. I've never been to East Bay, never set foot on the campus, but it was something I can do, and I had to do it that way because obviously I'm married and with a child, and I'm settled here in the desert. That this was the best option.
Originally came to East Bay with an economics major because I had like a billion different majors I was interested in. And luckily my sister had been to college before and she always emphasized the idea that I can always change my major if I change my mind. So I was walking around campus in the arts and education building and I saw a poster promoting the hospitality major. And I was like, wait, that looks really interesting. And then I immediately changed my major. And then I've been pursuing hospitality ever since then. Um, but I always recommend if you have like multiple interests, especially your freshman year, feel free to take classes from different majors because they're open to everybody because you never know what you're going to be interested in. And you might take a random class and you might fall in love with it.
That's a fact. Straight facts. All right. So we'll move on to the next question that we have. Which classes have you enjoyed the most so far and why? Were they a major class? Were they not a major class that made you change your major? Tell us about it. And so I'll start it back off with Melissa.
I took a professional preparation class that's under the hospitality department, and it basically teaches you like how to make a resume, how to do an interview. Like it teaches you like a lot of foundational business skills, and I really, really appreciated that class, and I always recommended it. There's also like a intro like no, there's like a finance class that's like a 1 unit class, which means it's like low effort, and it teaches you about budgeting and taxes and like a lot of surface level finance stuff that's really, really helpful. So there's a lot of classes out there, so I always recommend checking out the catalog and seeing like what's available.
And then Joshua.
Yeah, like I said, I came in expecting mostly religious classes, and what I'm really enjoying is how diverse philosophy can be, from bioethics to ancient philosophy to modern philosophy. I find myself really enjoying the philosophy part of uh, the program as well as the religious program. And it's really, it's great for critical thinking. And I'm really enjoying the professors and the coursework.
One thing I want to mention is also that although I've been an in-person student sociology program and ethics studies program, have so many classes offered online, or those are the only options specifically. And so sometimes you don't really know going into that which classes are. That's not for all majors on campus, but for mine specifically, that's been my case. And so I've had some experiences in that. But because of that, I've had some really good experiences in person with my own major classes when they have been offered in person and being able to really engage with people in that way. But also being a 4 year student or like starting out here doing GEs as well really did give me also that experience that they were talking about. We're trying out different classes or it was required, but it kind of gave me that reason to dip my toes into different things. So I ultimately stuck with what I wanted to study, but it's been interesting to kind of explore not just like other topics, but also being able to relate it back to your own major. I feel like it's something that people don't always realize that a lot of us, regardless of what our majors are connected or we can be connected to each other in one way or another. So that's something that I think I reflected a lot on as my time here.
Friends. Alrighty. Next one. How have your experiences with faculty been? And are professors easy to reach outside of class? Can you share a time a professor really supported you? And then we'll start it off with Joshua.
Yeah, I've enjoyed every, teacher I've had. Some are different, but you have to get to know their style, which eventually, comes about. It's just like kind of a learning curve. Uh, Always check the syllabus before you ask questions. And what else, God? As for every time you email them, they're really good at getting back to you. I've never had a problem with any teacher ever not getting back to me or answering the question. And let's see, where a teacher has helped me through. Last semester, we had our philosophy symposium, and I had a teacher help me prepare a paper for that symposium that I presented. Yeah. And she kind of walked me through the process, gave me edits and to ways to make it more scholarly, since that was kind of what it was. So I'll always be grateful for that.
I've been really lucky with all the hospitality professors. It is just like an industry of people, so they've all been super nice and super understanding. Um, and it's my degree is also all asynchronous, so no Zoom, no in-person classes. So I also like mainly communicate with my professors through email. But when I did my GE classes, I would talk to all my professors in person. They're always super nice. It's always nice to like stick around after class to talk to them. Um, and then I also want to emphasize always like in your syllabus. Usually that answers a lot of the questions you have with classes. And then there's been a couple times in different semesters where I just been like really struggling personally, and then that reflected back to my academics. And I would get behind in the class, and then I'd be really intimidated to talk to the professor and like reach out to them about like my how I'm gonna make up my work. And there was this one professor I remember I had emailed him about catching up, and he like emailed me back saying if we can do a Zoom meeting. I was so scared to like face him and like have to like admit that I did really badly. And I remember I just hopped on the Zoom and he was like super understanding, and I was trying to apologize. And he was like, "No, it's okay. Like it happens. Like you at least you reached out, and like we made a plan together for me to catch up my work." And I just really appreciated that because I was really intimidated to reach out, and it turns out that that was like the best choice.
Definitely resonate with those things as well with the online experience, but I definitely have had some like mixed experience in terms of responsiveness, at least for my professors, but it was nothing that we weren't able to work out. But yeah, and ultimately kind of like I think Josh was saying, just like kind of getting a feel for the professor. Sometimes when you start out, it can be hard to really tell if you've never had them before, but once you kind of get a feel for what works best for them, and hopefully they're letting you know what works best for them, but that's not always the case. So, coming into it, trying to be flexible and open-minded about it, and like usually they'll have some sort of way they'll tell you to reach out with. Sometimes they have a preferred way. Um, I don't know, things like that I think are interesting in the online format, but even in person as well, it can make it a little bit less intimidating to approach them potentially in person. Because I know for me, reaching out emails can be like, oh, are they gonna see this? Like, are they gonna say anything? But yeah, it's been good. They're usually very responsive. At least give it a shot, no matter what happens, it's worthwhile. But in terms of just like faculty in general, again, very very nice. Even ones who have been tough graders or anything like that, like all of them have been very nice generally, even if like for some reason your style doesn't really work with theirs very well. I haven't had like any professors that have been mean-spirited or anything like that. Um, and yeah, an instance of a professor supporting me was also just like an office hours thing. Sometimes I don't tend to go to them very often, but a lot of professors will offer, just shoot me an email. You can set up something if you're having an issue or just want to talk about something. And so one time I did to ask about just kind of like career advice or kind of internship advice where to even start. So that was someone in my own department, and she was like, "Oh yeah, just like you can set up a Zoom and just chat about whatever." So that was really nice.
Now, going to Hope's bread and butter. As you mentioned earlier, are you involved in anything outside of the classroom, like clubs, research, internships that connects your major? How has it helped you? And so, help. I know you mentioned earlier you talk a little bit more later, so I'll start it off with you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think being on campus, I mean, plays a big role in that. So I'm not sure your guys' experience are necessarily getting involved on in the online sense, if at all. But yeah, being on campus, living on campus definitely opened up a lot of opportunities for me to just interact with people in clubs in person. And so I've joined or participated in events, even if I'm not part of clubs. And so just dropping in and meeting people like that has been really nice. I currently am on campus often, even though I don't have in-person classes because I work as a student employee on campus with student well-being services. So that's one of the departments on campus. So I spent a lot of time there. And then also, I'm involved with a couple of student organizations helping out here and there, LGBTQ club on campus, also the Filipino Student Association. I have some friends in there. So just meeting people and different from different areas of campus has been nice for me to kind of feel connected to the community on campus and just meeting people in general.
So I also worked on campus the last 2 years. I worked at the tutoring center at the SCA on campus, and that helped me a lot with giving me like a lot of like academic habits to build on. And then also helped my hospitality department with their social media. And then like I'm a student member on one of their boards. So if you are like an online student, you are asynchronous or just like synchronous with your Zoom meetings, I really recommend like reaching out to professors often and like getting them to know you since you don't really get to see them in person. And then I'm also involved in like Greek life and other organizations on campus, even though I also all have asynchronous classes.
I'm currently the philosophy assistant. So I guess that's a student job. And with that, help her post things, do our webinars. Like we have a webinar tomorrow. Every week we have a philosophy society meeting that I plan and run for the department. And it's nice because as helping out, you get to know your professors better. And also you get to know other other professors from like when we bring in somebody for a webinar, she has me interview them and stuff like that. So I'm really making a lot of good connections even outside of East Bay, which is pretty awesome.
That's awesome. So see if you're even planning on not even being in the Bay, there's opportunities for you to find your way to establish yourself on the campus. Whether it's coming and visiting us every once in a while or finding a way to get involved virtually. Moving on to the next question. We have what's something that has surprised you about studying your major? And I'll hand it back to Alyssa.
I feel like with hospitality, not a lot of people surprisingly like are aware what it is. And I didn't before I committed to, I didn't realize how big of an industry it really is because it encompasses so much of like so many businesses. So I was really surprised with how many different pathways I can take with hospitality, whether it's like resorts, hotels, restaurants, just so many like people service industries that I can take with the major that are like now open.
I'd say for sociology as well, I think I felt a similar way because I mean, I guess when I explain sociology to me, it's like the study of people and how they interact with society and like social systems. So that could apply to literally anything. And so I think exploring and meeting people, I was able to go to a sociology conference with our department actually, so I got to meet some people from other schools as well, which was a great opportunity. But getting to hear that it's a very flexible major, at least from what I've learned from a lot of people, though it's not like super old established and like a lot of job titles necessarily kind of have to like find your way into the skill set of what people are looking for more so, but it's very flexible in that way. People in medical side and like public health kind of leaning, people in activism work, people in research, like it all over the place. And so yeah, there's a lot of things I think you learn by meeting new people and their experiences that are very unique even within your major. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what Hope just said, that philosophy is the exact same way. It's very broad. Uh, there's philosophy in everything, from math, ethics, feminist philosophy. It's just everywhere, so you can um, focus on any certain part that resonates with you, and then it's just very broad or critical thinking that can help with a number of careers outside of school.
Next one is, if a student needs help in a class, what would you suggest they do? I'll start off with Joshua.
I would first, I would check your syllabus always, because a lot of the little simple questions are always answered there. And that's the one thing they get, they don't like it when it's answered in the syllabus. But other than that, I would reach out to your professor. They're so good at getting back to you. This is your education. This is your chance to be, uh, take charge of your education. You don't have to be, you just kind of explain yourself, and they're always there to help. The one thing I've realized is that teachers love when you take the initiative and kind of taken, to really want to learn and to do what you can to improve your grade. So I would say definitely reach out to your teacher, and hopefully somebody there. I know there's a lot of things on campus that you can reach out to too that can really help and give assistance.
Looking back at the questions. Okay, if a student needs help in a class, definitely what we've been talking about, reaching out. Also, there's so many resources on campus, whether you're in person or virtually. The tutoring center I used to work at, I was a peer academic coach. So we basically help students with like academic habits like time management, planning, and prioritizing. And they do sessions with students in person and online. And those are all free resources you guys can use. So definitely look into the resources available at East Bay. Your tuition always pays for it, so might as well use them. It's always there for you. And then just emphasize reaching out to your professors as early as possible. Because usually if you communicate with them and you just like talk to them about what's going on, they can usually understand they can meet you somewhere.
Um, I've used Scott just I think once or twice before, but yeah, they were definitely helpful. And then you don't necessarily have to use everything all of the time. And I don't think I've used like I don't have a consistent service that I use all of the time when it comes to academic things, but having those options I think is really great. Just if it happens to come up like I used the Scott just for a specific paper that I needed help with and they were there. And so I think building that network of trust with your professors and communication. One is like also really important, but also knowing what resources school provides already is really good. But and if you have the chance to connect with your classmates at all, that could also be a really great resource as well to like be able to know what's going on if other people are struggling as well. And it's not always the easiest thing, especially online. I'm sure like it's hard to really get to know people very well, but if there are people, it's okay to put yourself out there, ask questions, post things, and see if anybody else is also looking for people to connect with and or maybe study together or whatever it is. So it's a lot of different ways you can go about just finding support systems on campus.
Thank you. And just for everybody to know, this is our last planned questions. So start thinking in the back of your brain if you have any questions for our panelists before we hop off. We have some time reserved for that later. But looking back, what's one piece of advice you'd give new students or something you wish you knew before starting courses? Now, I'll let you, this is a loaded question, so I'll let you guys pick whenever you guys are ready.
Would say first, be flexible, uh, meaning each teacher is going to be different. So after the first assignment, wait for the feedback and see how that particular professor once the assignment's done. That's That, and if you have any problems, I would say contact your professor sooner than later, because when you fall behind, it's hard to play catch up. They're very understanding, but always reach out to them.
To kind of bounce off that, I would say also explore like different things that work for you because the one way you might study for a certain class might not work for another class. And just because you always study one certain way in high school doesn't mean it's going to work the best for you in college. So I would always like look into or like ask like other students how they study for their tests, how they tackle their homework if you feel like you're struggling. Just there's so many different ways to do well in your classes, so just explore them. You don't have to like stick to a certain one.
Yeah, and I think just there's always a shift regardless of where you're coming from, whether it be community college or just from not going to school or straight out of high school. Like coming into a new space is very intimidating or kind of nerve-wracking I'm sure all of us have experienced that at one point or another. Um, but yeah, I think the flexibility of it, communication, and so just kind of in the similar vein, being open-minded about what you're going into. It's not always necessarily going to go bad if you're more of an anxious type going into it. But there's a lot of opportunities, regardless of where you're going or whatever new space you're in. There's a lot of opportunities that I feel like people don't necessarily give a chance to explore, or maybe they hear about it through somebody else, but as someone like in my position on campus with student well-being services, we know a lot about the resources on campus, and kind of disseminating that knowledge to people who don't know is kind of part of our position. But I think people who go out of their way to explore the resources that are included in your experience here that are not just about, going in, getting out with your degree. There's all these other things that you could tap into if you want to, that could be a great experience outside of just a piece of paper at the end of the day.
And so now we're opening the floor to you all. If you have a question for any of our panelists, you're more than welcome to drop it in the chat. We still have another 30 minutes, so we have time. So I'll keep an eye on the chat and see if there's any that pops in. Awesome. We already have one. If any of you have lived on campus, which ones do you live in? How was it? The good and the bad. So
I don't know if you lived on campus. I don't know if you had mentioned that, Alyssa. But okay. For me, I lived in the freshman dorms, and then I lived in there's different options after you leave the freshman dorms, but the freshman dorms are just the same. But yeah, I lived in a triple both years that I lived here on campus, and I mean. I think it'll be the same like anywhere you would end up going. The people that you end up with can really make or break your experience. And that's something that unfortunately, like you don't have a lot of control over. And I personally had a decent experience. I actually did make good friends that I'm still friends with now, but I know that's not the case for everybody. So I think overall, what I wanted, which was that experience of being able to connect with people better, being on campus versus commuting, which is kind of what I do now. So I already have kind of established some more connections with people than maybe I would have. Sometimes it could be a little bit difficult to meet people in classes, or you have to try a little bit harder. Just kind of like the way you go about making friends or meeting new people, if that's what you want to do, might be a little different. Um, if you're not living on campus, but um in general, I had a positive experience, but yeah, there's a lot of ins and out of it details that could go into, but generally if there's any follow-up specific questions about it, you can feel free to ask, but yeah.
I'll add on to it. I also lived in the dorms my first 3 years, and then I moved out this past year. I also had pretty good experiences. I'm also friends with all the roommates I had. Um, and then housing does a lot of like events on their own, so I definitely recommend pushing yourself to go out and do that, and just be communicative with your roommates in the beginning of the year too. Because I know it can be kind of hard living with like strangers, and you guys all have different living styles. Uh, but just like talk to them, talk about your boundaries, figure out what works for everyone, and you guys will be good.
and Joshua, you said you didn't live on campus, right? You stayed down in Palm Desert.
Yes.
Okay. We'll keep on pushing this. The next question we have, which is probably one you would be able to answer. As an online student, were you able to complete your GE graduate requirements online as well? Or GE and graduate requirements as well?
Uh, I don't know if Cal State East Bay offers that because I had done all my general ed at a community college, which was 100% online. And then I transferred in as a junior. So I don't know, but for my coursework, everything for philosophy is online.
There are a lot of GE classes online. I started here as a freshman and I took like a mix of in-person and online GE requirements. Eastray is really good at having online classes, so there should be a majority of them available online if that's what you prefer.
I'll mention that, I mean, I think I pretty much had all in person for at least my GEs. Um, but I definitely think in the past few years they have been pivoting a little bit more towards online. So if online is kind of what you're looking for, there definitely are a lot more options, and I think it's been growing even within the last few years from what I've seen. So yeah, I think I think you should be good, but also like I think reaching out to people there, and depending on what you're trying to do, get some more information from folks would be a good idea as well. I This isn't necessarily to answer a particular question, but um just like based off of the discussion or points that people have been making, I think I want to point out the fact that at least here I haven't had this Smiling University experience, so I'm not sure how it is on other campuses, but I felt that this campus has a very diverse population of students, just like on all different like spectrums or whatever you would consider diversity, but online students, like hybrid students, people commuting, some people living on campus, people who are coming back to school, people are transferring, people are international students, people right out of college. So I think that's one thing I personally really liked about being able to meet people on campus is there is such a great diversity in experiences that people have here. As a freshman, it was kind of interesting or fun to be able to walk in a class, not necessarily in GEs, but when I met people in my major classes, I'm here as like a freshly 18-year-old, but I also have someone in my class that's a grandparent who's in like their 60s, and so I know East Bay also likes to tout that they have a very high diversity rate on our campus, but being on campus, I felt that there is a truth to that personally. And it could be, race, ethnic background too, I know was kind of a big part of that specific point. But um, yeah, I definitely think there is a lot of really cool people to meet, and that's something I really like about this campus.
One of the things I love about being in my role is I get to meet with a lot of you all, prospective or incoming admitted students. And every meeting I have with students, they're like, I know I'm probably the only one. Every meeting I have that I'm probably the outlier. When you think you're the outlier at East Bay, the outlier is probably one of the common. So that's what I love about our campus is you definitely don't feel alone because you're way more well represented than you probably ever think. Um, so thank you. That was awesome. Bouncing it back to you, how's the coursework for the ethnic studies major?
I just want to say I see a question in the chat before going into that, just to address that about transferring. I'm assuming that would be more for Josh if he wants to answer that.
I mean, yeah, I can jump in on this one. Anything you would like to have known before starting? I had a very good advisor at my community college that pretty much walked me through the whole process. So everything I kind of needed to know, it was pretty easy and seamless because it's, to transfer to Cal State, it's just fill out the application. And I actually had two different Cal States that I could have choose from. And I chose East Bay, and each one is very easy just to kind of just walk through the application process. And they're very good at getting back to you on what you need to do. And, it's a phone call away and they'll answer whatever questions you need. So always reach out.
Is it difficult to get a campus job? I'll probably have to take out a loan and attend, but it'd be nice to be able to start saving and pay it back.
I mean, I know you both also technically have have positions as well as students, but for me, I'd say that there's a lot of opportunities to get on campus jobs, though the timing of it can be a little bit difficult. A lot of people come in also just like day to day, hey, are you guys hiring? And a lot of departments hire usually yearly, although some of them do hire kind of in between fall and spring, depending on the department. Um, but yeah, from my end of things, places on campus specifically, there's a lot of them. Just the library, the raw, which is the gym or rec center on campus, the dining hall, I mean the unions, game zones, different types of things. There's also specific departments that hire also, like if you were to want to be, sorry, I forgot to mention the SCA. But looking for assistance. I think maybe Josh probably could talk more about that. Um, but yeah, I know people who've helped do grading. If like you happen to know professors, sometimes they have kind of like not like a huge pool of people, but sometimes people doing that. Or even just TA work also. I know some people do just for certain classes or if there's certain courses, STEM lab tutoring. There's like all sorts of things depending on what you might be interested in, but definitely worthwhile to take a look because there's a lot of different opportunities depending on what you're open to doing.
And my opportunity just came about from a professor just announcing it that they needed an assistant because the person before me had graduated. And so I just answered just thinking it was a volunteer thing and it ended up being, being paid. So I just wanted to get to know more people. And the one thing I wished is that I did go to the Philosophy Society meetings before I started hosting them, because it's great conversation. It's great to get involved into other people that are in your major. It's been very rewarding. I've had some great conversations.
To add on to that, a lot of departments do hire like a handful of students to help them with like different stuff, either meetings or like social media. Um, Usually a lot of people are hired around their junior or senior year. But you can always reach out to your department and see if they have any openings, see if anyone's graduating soon. That's how I got my job with my department. And then I want to emphasize the timing part about campus jobs. A lot of them are yearly, so they do hire during the spring semester for fall and spring, the upcoming one. So it can be a little bit tricky with that, but you can always go around and ask people. And then my freshman year, spring semester, I also worked at the financial aid office because a financial aid person representative came into one of my classrooms and like promoted the job. And I just emailed my resume and I got the job through that. So always keep an eye out if anybody comes to your classroom or like sends announcements through one of your classes. Always apply to that because not a lot of people do, so you usually have good chances.
Yeah, I also just want to mention that I know we have a few different like resources on campus. Like I know some people post stuff on Handshake. That's like one of the apps that they use for colleges. Not everyone does for all on campus, but a lot of them do. And we also have, I believe, the Career Center as well. That's kind of on the newer end, but they started kind of pushing to get more people. They have people who could help advise you. Just kind of just general career things as well, but I think they also have information, or I hope they do, about on-campus jobs as well. But yeah, honestly, like I've seen people walk in some buildings on campus or just ask someone there at the front desk, hey, like, what's kind of the timeline? I would be interested in potentially knowing more information about it. Where can I look? And just even knowing more, or sometimes they like have an ongoing list of people that they can reach out to when they are hiring and stuff like that. But I will say with on-campus jobs, it is, at least in my experience, been very flexible, which has been a positive with hours because all of us are students. They're usually very understanding and usually work around your schedule and classes and everything like that. Though I will say, as a student employee, you can only work up to 20 hours just because of laws and legal things. So you're totally able to have jobs outside of campus. You just can't work more than 20 hours at an on-campus job. And some people also have more than one on-campus job. So it's still within the 20 hours, but like you can work more than one position even. But there's a lot of different ways that you could go about doing it if you are interested in that. Yeah. Also work study. I know that's like something that might be applicable. So a lot of them do work study, but it's not like required. It'll depend on the position, but just wanted to mention that too.
I worked on campus most of the time I was there too. So just keep an eye on your Horizon email, my friends. Please keep an eye on your Horizon email for other important things that come out to you, whether it's events, but most importantly, if you keep an eye on your Horizon email, important stuff like jobs will also get sent there. Um, a question said, what is work study? Do you feel comfortable explaining it? I can explain it. I have a Me? Okay. So basically what work study is in the simplest term, it's you being given money from the government to work at a job on campus, but it doesn't really go to you directly. It's money given to the department you're working for. So for example, um, let's say you're wanting to work for a department, but they're really low on budget, but you have work study as part of your financial aid package, you can let that department know, being like, hey, I have work study. So they could actually hire you and pay you based with a large, I'll say a large sum from that pot so that you don't have to go around and look for departments to work for and then they tell you, well, we can't hire you because we don't have the money. So a good amount, depending on the departments, what you're looking for, some departments might only be able to hire work study students. So it's important to know if you have it or not, if you know you want to work on campus. But some departments don't. So, like, for example, when I used to work in housing, I didn't need work study. It was a perk when I had students that worked for work study, just because that meant later down the line, I was able to shift hours and actually give more hours to my students since I had a bigger budget to pull from. But when you see it in your financial aid package, it's not money that's going to go to you directly. It's going to be money that will go to the department you work for that will then go into paying for you. I hope that makes sense. It's a little confusing, but are there any other questions? Okay, cool.
I think we skipped over the coursework for the ethnic studies major question.
Yes. Let's go back to that one.
I didn't realize that that was actually a question. For some reason, I thought you were asking that to me, and I was like,
Oh,
oh, no, no, sorry, I completely had missed that. Yeah, okay, no wonder. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of a vague question. If you want to like specify more about, I'll just talk about it a little bit. Um, coursework, like. I'm not sure if you mean like what kinds of stuff we study or just generally how difficult it is or like unit wise or things like that. But ethnic studies major, the program is kind of one of the smaller like ones in terms of the required courses that are needed. So I kind of mentioned that before also with sociology. So like for example, like biology, like they have like 90 units that they require you, like specifically a biology class that you need to meet to be able to like fulfill the degree requirements versus like ethnic studies might only have like 45 or something like that. Okay. Um so how difficult it is. Yeah, ethnic studies and like sociology I would say are similar in a lot of ways. A lot of humanities courses, which I think would probably apply also to philosophy and things like that as well. Um I don't know what I thought the coursework was going to be like, but yeah, there definitely is a lot of reading and writing involved. Not maybe to the same degree that like an English major might, but a lot of the stuff that we do study involves reading. Um, Not always academic papers, but usually pieces by other people. Sometimes it's a mix of not always just papers, but like could be videos, could be movies, could be poems or art or things like that as well. But it is definitely um humanities research and writing. If you're they I will say that they kind of in my experience lean into the research side or preparing you for research skills in both sociology and ethnic studies. But at the end of the day, like you could apply those skills to a lot of different areas if you're looking to do more like on the groundwork. Like you could still use those skills in a lot of ways. That's how I kind of framed it for myself. So there are required classes that are research based or like a writing requirement. That's also university wide. They do require you to do a writing class, I believe. But yeah, I mean, I guess it does depend on what you're comfortable with as well. I personally, I don't mind reading and writing. It's not a super difficult subject for me, but it can be a lot, depending on what you are interested in, or what you're willing to do. But definitely a lot of reading to some degree. I will say though, I have talked to people from other majors, even like computer science, which I'm like, they've had to write papers for that. So I feel like the reading is kind of unavoidable in a lot of different areas. It's just gonna be different kind of reading and writing. I have, yeah, some friends involved, or I have seen people or had friends who've taken just like even if it's GE courses for music. But I don't know the scale, but I know definitely there's a lot of different types of courses in the field, and I know some people specialize more in like specific instruments or like, programs let people be vocal or like instrumental things like that. We do actually have some cool opportunities within the program though that are I have some friends who are in the rock band on campus. So that's pretty fun depending on what kind of music you play or what instruments. But that's something that they've been trying to get more off the ground, and they've had some cool opportunities to perform on campus and also in the community. They also have jazz band. They also, just like orchestral group as well that I believe some of them are classes and some of them might also just be for fun, but I know jazz or rock band is definitely a class. And so, yeah, depending on what you're into, there's some cool group opportunities I know that exist.
I wanted you to go first because my experience is a little dated. I was in the Wind Symphony and I was in the pep band when we used to have one. We don't have one at the moment, or at least that I'm aware of. Uh, it's a great program. I really liked the faculty that I knew at the time. I think both of the directors that I had worked with, they're now gone. Uh, but everyone that I met within the music department, very welcoming. I wasn't even a music major, I was a human development major. When I was in high school and beyond, I was very involved in music. And so when I came in, I did one symphony, and the whole entire time they're like, change your major, change your minor, or you could just say we just enjoy you being here. And so, uh, if you're wanting to be in a program that is very welcoming, I know you'll enjoy it. I see that you may be in choir, so we do have a choir group on campus. Very talented. I get to see them at some events that they perform at on campus. One of the notable ones that I enjoy seeing them for is at the end of every fall semester, we host a winter party for all of the professional staff on campus, and our choir actually comes and performs Christmas carols at it. And they sound amazing. And so, if you want to be involved in the music program, you could be involved either passively or as a major and very involved. I was not a major or minor in music, but I was still able to perform. And you're right, it is a class. And so you would be able to be in the wind symphony class. I wanted to do the jazz band, but I didn't have the availability in my schedule. But depending on when they have the schedule in the classes, uh, you could even talk with the director and see if you have to take it as a class, because it would be a unit that would be taken out of your schedule for other classes, obviously. But I'm not a panelist, sorry, but I just wanted to make sure you got your info for music. Any last questions? We'll take one more question. There are any. What is the one thing that makes you most proud to be a pioneer for East Bay? So when you're looking back on your experience or looking forward to becoming an alumni, what makes you the most proud of being a pioneer?
Gotten a lot of cool opportunities through my department. I've been to Chicago for a conference, Las Vegas for a conference. I went to Long Beach for a conference. Um, I've gotten to grow a lot of my networking skills. I just feel like they've built me throughout my 4 years here they built a lot of my professional skills, and I've really appreciated that.
Yeah, for me, it's just the connections and the teachers that I've met that have helped me through this process. And one other thing I was going to say is depending on if you have an idea on what your major is, you can always, like I did when I was making my decision on where to go to school, I made an appointment with the head guy in the philosophy thing, and we had a Zoom, and he answered all my questions. So before you make any decisions, you can always meet with the head of the department, and they'll very gladly Zoom with you and answer any questions whatsoever that you have to help you with the decision process.
Um, and I was like, that's a very patriotic question. I was like, I I think for me, my instinct for my answer kind of goes towards because I am from the East Bay. I think that's a big part of it for me. It kind of feels connected to my community location wise. I know that's not the case for a lot of people, necessarily with some people, but yeah, for me, it makes me feel connected to not just like the school community, but also my community as a whole, because there are kind of local people here, local opportunities and connections within that. And so it has that extra aspect of it for myself. But um I do think that a lot of people, and I've talked to them, like we're not a huge campus compared to some other campuses, and so sometimes that can be a little bit like, oh, like you don't know how to feel about that. But I think coming to this campus, I've helped identify what I want and not necessarily what's expected, I think is something that I felt. I realized that when I was applying to college, it's like a lot of people are applying to UCs, like I could do that, but then I'm like, okay, but what do I actually want? Out of my education? Do I want like this whole big experience or and I looked at East Bay and ultimately like that size and like the things that it had to offer was kind of what I felt most comfortable with and what I wanted to do. And so I think it's okay to be a smaller school or to have this kind of unique experience and um yeah, wherever you're coming from, I think there's a lot of ways to have it bigger or smaller or whatever experience you want to have. You can make it what you want it to be.
Thank you, friends. Well, and with that, I will leave it there. And for our very last question, which I think is very perfect with rounding everything out. So at the beginning of our session, I mentioned, and I wanted to make sure you guys got invited for Admitted Student Day. Again, this is going to be happening next Saturday, April 25th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I highly recommend you come and check out this event. This was the event that I went to when I was shopping for schools, and this was the event that made me choose East Bay. And so if you want to check out academic departments, non-academic departments, clubs and organizations, tours of the campus, tours of housing. We have all kinds of stuff going on. We're also having a cookout. We'll have a harpist performing. I believe they were from AGT, if I'm correct. And so it's really going to be a huge event. I highly recommend you attend. Free for yourself and for any guests you'd like to bring to attend as well. And I would hopefully see you all there. I'll be there running around somewhere. But thank you all for attending. If you guys have any questions, what I'm going to do is drop in the chat. Bay.edu. You're more than welcome to send us a email there to reach out to us for any questions, or you could even call or text us at our number. And I know texting, crazy, but 2556. This is also our phone number. So you could call or text us at 510-885-2556. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your evening.